The American flag was recently burnt in Union Square, Washington, D.C. A mob defaced war memorials in America's capital. What I find so shocking about this is that we're not more shocked. Why is it that a significant portion of American society behaves this way? Where did this self-hatred come from? The rot, I believe, stems from something called cultural relativism, the erroneous belief that all cultures are of equal worth. For much of America's existence, the vast mass of her people had remarkably little contact with the outside world. Culturally, 20th century America was a great cultural exporter. Her movies, her music, her fashion were adopted around the world. Apart from the occasional fad for Mexican food or British rock bands, there was remarkably little traffic the other way. Until very recently, overseas travel for Americans was very limited. As late as the early 1990s, 9 out of 10 Americans didn't own a passport. Being such well-meaning people, many Americans in that insularity perhaps just assumed that the people who lived beyond their borders were either just like them or else wanted to become just like them. College-educated Americans, meanwhile, who often presumed to know more about the outside world, have been raised to be cultural relativists. Over the past generation or so, American higher education has been marinated in the postmodernist notion that there's no such thing as objective truth. Every belief university students have been taught is just an expression of a preference or an opinion. No country or culture, it therefore follows, is better than any other, and only a supremacist would think otherwise. Instead of learning about American exceptionalism, a generation of educated Americans has been raised to venerate non-judgmentalism. Anyone who believes all cultures are of equal value knows little of other cultures and precious little about their own. If you doubt me when I insist that some cultures are better than others, indulge me for a moment in a little thought experiment. Ponder for a moment what life must have been like for many Americans in the 1950s. Segregation was widespread. Discrimination was often legal, as was the unequal treatment of women before the law. Thankfully, none of that is now lawful. Segregation, discrimination, unequal treatment are not only unlawful, they're deemed socially unacceptable. In other words, American culture has improved over the past 60 or 70 years. Cultural progress is therefore possible. If it's possible for a culture to progress, then all cultures cannot possibly be of equal worth. America today is a better place for those social changes than she was all those decades ago. If you're a cultural relativist, on the other hand, who believes that all cultures are the same, you cannot believe in cultural progress. Cultural progress is, however, possible, and some cultures have progressed further than other, less advanced cultures. Some ways of life, for example, produce more innovation and enterprise. This is indisputable. Fewer than 5% of the people living on the planet have the good fortune to be American citizens. Yet from the light bulb to airplanes to iPhones, Americans have accounted for an extraordinary share of human innovation. Some ways of life also produce greater human happiness and fulfillment. It's only possible to believe that all cultures are of equal value when everyone around you is also the product of Western relativist thought too. If you're a progressive, Ivy League educated American who only ever engages with other products of Western progressive thinking, you can keep on believing that your Ivy League parochialism is actually a form of sophistication. But what happens when you eventually come across people that do believe in something? We caught a little glimpse of this in Union Square the other day. The college kids chanting anti-Israel slogans might not believe in anything. Those in the crowd that were reportedly chanting Allah Akbar certainly do believe in something. If all cultures are of equal worth, where is the incentive for the new arrivals from other cultures to integrate? If every way of life is equally valid, why celebrate anything special about America? The danger is that cultural relativism renders Western societies defenseless and unable to respond to those who wish to live in the West but reject Western norms. America's been extraordinarily successful, taking people from a multitude of backgrounds and turning them into Americans. More often than not, this process of integration, assimilation, call it what you like, has been entirely organic. Nobody requires us to hang flags on our front porches. The singing of the Star-Spangled Banner on Friday night lights is spontaneous and joyful. Governments don't need to tell us to celebrate Thanksgiving. American success can only happen if we recognize that there is something exceptional about America.